Hi, good morning, and welcome to this edition of Market Analysis for today, Friday the 26th. I'm Giovanni Benacour, trader and also a educator with Vantage Markets. All right, so Main Street continues to wrestle with a spending crunch as markets will be hanging on every word that the Fed Chair Jerome Powell says at the annual gathering of central banks and what his speech means for interest rates. Specifically, reactions will hinge on whether he'll hint at a dovish pivot at next month's policy meeting or send investors running for cover by reaffirming the current hawkish stance. Unfortunately, for those hoping to see doves fly, the consensus going into the meeting is that the Fed's work on tackling inflation is not done yet. So suggesting that Powell's unlikely to pivot to a less aggressive policy is more likely. Both equity and debt markets are expecting a renewed commitment to the hawkish path the Fed has been on all summer. The bond market is believing that there's going to be either a 50 or 75 basis point hike in September and at least another 50 point in November. However, the stock market seems to be pricing in a 25 basis point hike in November. So if bond markets are correct in the very short term, Powell may be more hawkish than stocks want to hear. Now, let me emphasize that the Fed governors this week have raised concerns about whether inflation has really peaked. And that means stocks could slip in the short term if Powell commits to inflation busting talk. Now, before Monday, indexes have climbed in anticipation of a potential dovish pivot, but Fed governors' comments have dashed those expectations this week, and stocks have mostly fallen. Now, computers have joined the list of items that shoppers are leaving on store shelves. Dell Technologies pulled down its forecast for the January 2023 fiscal year, deepening the consumer electronics gloom. Device sellers made hay during the pandemic as stay-at-home workers and students splashed out on equipment. Those days are long gone, as the latest earnings from Peloton Interactive show. Now, the ensuing semiconductor shortage is easing, just as household budgets rapidly tighten. Chip maker Nvidia warns that revenue this quarter will be about 1 billion lighter than consensus as demand weakens among PC gamers for its graphics cards, which are also used for crypto mining. Its shares are 41% lower year to date. In this climate, Sony is taking a risk by hiking the price of its hard-to-find PlayStation 5 console in many markets outside the US, blaming inflation and currency moves. Now, the outlook for microchips, a leading indicator for consumer electronics, is softening. World Semiconductor Trade Statistics, an industry tracker, lowered its forecast to 13.9% growth this year, down from an earlier 16.3%, and penciled in just 4.6% for 2023, the lowest since the US-China trade war bit in 2019. That means new chip plants from a Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company in Arizona in 2024 and Intel in Ohio in 2025 could come on stream just as the industry heads from boom back to bust. At least Apple should find an audience for its new iPhone, due to debut next month. Even though the tech giant has been discounting in China, some devices are must-have, no matter what the Fed does to prices. So with that tone, let's take a look at what the markets could be doing before they open, or let's say, where would the markets be at 10 o'clock when Mr. Jerome Powell begins his speech? I will assume that the markets will be flat, waiting on his comments. But we already understood his comments. So right now, the market, at least the Nasdaq, is looking to press higher towards our psychological 13,200. Initially, I have my resistance a bit higher at 13,236. My pivot point is acting as a nice support for the market so far, but this nice movement could probably take the market into overbought territory. So keep an eye on that, and then for do a just a pivoting point of the market should be fluctuating between my resistance and my pivot point. Here we have the Nasdaq, the S&P 500, just as the same as Nasdaq, is to push higher to that 4,210 mark. I have my resistance a bit higher, 11 points higher. The same scenario could probably apply. Just for a fluctuation around between my pivot and my resistance. Crude oil is the one that kind of took a hit, perhaps some profit taken on it, but will it stay above $91 for today? I assume so. The consensus, or I believe that the crude oil could probably stay also calm as the time comes near for Mr. Jerome Powell to come out with his speech. So therefore, just a tight range between above 91 and below 92 could probably be 93 could be the scenario. Nat Gas also is trying to just stay calm throughout before the storm, I suppose. So the consensus, obviously, demand could probably be higher, obviously, to back up to $10, breaking our 970 resistance. But also, I would assume the market could do something like this again today, just because of what it was on the table right now with the assumption at the Jackson Hole. Gold is the one that could probably receive some volatility as the speech begins. So keep an eye on gold. Now, where could we probably see that movement? We have seen that the RSI has peaked above the oversold scenario back into neutral territory. We have our moving averages very close, though, giving us a resistance level, at least the 200 is. So 1750 is a psychological barrier, resistance right now. So keep an eye on that. Silver, the one that actually earlier today came and violated our resistance, but both candles have been closing below it. The moving averages are really just holding support. So I will assume also 19,200 below a range, ranging range between 19,200 and 19,268. That will be our trading range for silver. Copper, same wise. Copper is probably right now it's trading in overbought territory. So a continuation of this lateral movement ranging will continue throughout the day. Here we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin just nicely making some pops. 22,000 will be our psychological resistance level should we come and break out of it. So as the same token goes, perhaps Nasdaq is also doing that nice movement. So as Nasdaq also moves to the upside, we could probably see Bitcoin also moving up to the upside. And the euro finally moving above parity, at least to sustain itself above parity. Let's see if throughout the comments of Jerome Powell, the euro will gather some strength and just move a bit higher of parity, as long as the dollar index continues to plunge. 107,500 will be my next level of support for the dollar index. And I suppose that as the minutes or Mr. Jerome Powell's words or speech comes out onto the markets, we'll see more volatility in this asset. Should we see a strong movement to the downside on the dollar index, we'll see movement on gold. Okay, so that's it for our chat for today. Have a nice trading day, and I'll talk to you again. See ya.